Warning, the following video contains spoilers for Shin Megami Tensei III Nocturne, 4, and SMT5 Vengeance. This game is best experienced blind and I highly recommend playing it before watching this video. Lastly, the opinions stated are entirely my own. With all that out of the way, please enjoy. Handheld consoles are kinda weird. While the DS, 3DS, and PSP sold very well, critics and the rest of the gaming community have always held them to a different standard. This strange phenomenon has always been interesting to me for a plethora of reasons. Despite countless examples of critical and commercial success, games on these platforms have always been held in lower regard when compared to their console counterparts. I don't have an answer as to why, but my personal hypothesis attributes most of this to Nintendo's continued dominance in the handheld space. While Sony found some success with the PSP and Vita, the Game Boy, DS, and 3DS are the first things that come to mind when talking about handhelds. And because all these consoles are developed by Nintendo, so are some of the most critically acclaimed handheld games. Nintendo is known for developing fun, family-friendly games for everyone. If I asked you for your favorite handheld games, it wouldn't be surprising if you listed any of these classics. While Nintendo's family-focused strategy yielded strong financial results, it'd be disingenuous to say all of their games were made for families. A company that almost entirely juxtaposes Nintendo's ethos is Atlus. Atlus has always been a strange, no pun intended, partner with Nintendo because many of their games, especially back in the day, often carried a darker tone and tackled many different themes. Shin Megami Tensei in particular might be the best example of this, as the series is the tonal opposite of Nintendo's IPs, and I always found this quite strange. Tackling religion, economics, utilitarianism, free will, altruism, and more on consoles aimed at kids seemed antithetical for Atlus. Nevertheless, Atlus would go on to produce a ton of games for Nintendo's home and handheld consoles. All of this would change in 2020 with Atlus releasing Persona 4 Golden on Steam. Breaking free from the PS Vita, Persona 4 Golden would sell over 1 million copies. I'm not sure what Atlus' sales expectations were with Persona 4, but it's fair to assume the game sold well if they shared these numbers. In addition to strong sales performance, these figures prove something to Atlus that fans have been saying for a very long time. Please put your games on everything. Inspired by Persona 4's success on Steam, the Nocturne HD remaster released on everything. Persona 3, 4, and 5 became multi-platform, and the rest is history. This eloquently brings us to the title of today's video. There's a ton of MegaTen games out there, but SMT2, the Persona 2 duology, 3, 4, SMT4, Devil Survivor, and the Digital Devil Saga duology are often praised as the best. Today, I'd like to shine a spotlight on what I consider to be Atlus's crowning achievement, Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey. To me and a cult of others, this is the apex of Shin Megami Tensei. In today's video, I'd like to dive into why I believe this game is so special. Before getting started, let's get a few things out of the way. All this footage was captured live on my Twitch channel, so feel free to stop by if you'd like to catch the show live. I usually announce whenever I'm live on my Discord, Blue Sky, or Twitter, so feel free to follow me wherever. And all the links, as always, will be in the description for sources, social media, all that stuff. Second, and most importantly, the community voted for me to cover the original Strange Journey. As we all know, Atlus usually releases enhanced re-releases with additional content, new characters, new quests, new demons, and the works. However, Strange Journey Redux is kind of unique because, well, just look at the poll. Redux took some gameplay and creative liberties that divided the community. I've beaten Redux in the past and I'd like to discuss both in today's video. Initially, I was going to separate them into 2 videos, but I prefer to have all my thoughts here in one place. Please feel free to use the timestamps below, and like my SMT4 video, I played Strange Journey with a texture mod. And lastly, if my outline is anything to go off of, we're probably gonna be here for a while, so grab a meal, a drink, and relax as I explain why Strange Journey is Atlus's magnum opus. As always, let's discuss development initiatives by covering Strange Journey's development team and how we even got here. Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey was a joint venture between Atlus and Lancars or Lance. I'd love to discuss Lancars more, but finding information about them was challenging. Other than creating Etrian Odyssey and designing Strange Journey's battle system, information about them is very scarce online. Strange Journey was spearheaded by veteran Atlus director Eiji Ishida. He was accompanied by legendary demon artist Kazuma Kaneko serving as the producer, Shogo Isegai was the main scenario writer, and Shoji Meguro orchestrated the musical score. Strange Journey was Eiji Ishida's directorial debut after serving as Nocturne's chief designer. He's worked on a ton of SMT games ranging from Digital Devil Saga to Soul Hackers 2 and brings a ton of value wherever he's staffed. I know this isn't a Soul Hackers 2 video, but it'd be great to see what he could do if provided a full AAA budget. Unlike Katsura Hoshino or Kazuyuki Yamai, who've directed many home console games with big budgets, Eiji Ishida, and I'm just speculating here, seems to be allocated smaller budgets with his projects. To be fair, Hoshino's and Yamai's games have sold better, but they've also worked on Persona and or the mainline SMT games. Speaking of Atlus timeless legends, it's hard to talk about MegaTen without mentioning Cosmo Canonico. Series veteran Cosmo Canonico advocated for Strange Journey to be released on a handheld system. He felt SMT's game design philosophy harmonized with the portable nature of the DS, saw Etrian Odyssey's commercial success, the DS sold better than crack in the 80s, and admired the on and off nature of the handheld. To further elaborate on this last point, he said in multiple interviews that it would be cool to play MegaTen games here and there while you're on the go. Moments like these are why I love reading these developer interviews. The thought of going through one of the late game sectors here and there sounds like a terrible idea. Like, can you imagine the nightmare of going through Sector G's teleportation paths between meetings at work? Strange Journey has some of the most complex dungeons I've seen, so playing it here and there sounds both funny and agonizing at the same time. Something that's even more confusing though after researching this game is whether or not this game is considered a mainline SMT game. I'm not sure if this was a rumor or a mistranslation, but apparently Strange Journey was initially called Shin Megami Tensei IV, and it was considered a mainline entry. However, Ishida clarified in an interview around Redux's release that Strange Journey was developed as a spin-off from the beginning. After the game was playtested internally, the marketing team thought the game was good enough to be considered a mainline entry and rename it Shin Megami Tensei IV. As always, I'll leave links to the articles in the video description. I think this game is considered a mainline game, but honestly, who knows? I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts in the comment section below. Regardless of mainline status, Strange Journey is a legendary game that should be respected with Shoji Megaro's incredible orchestral score. Something that I failed to mention in my previous videos is that creative directors usually inform lead composers with what type of music they'd like to accompany their projects. Rafael Colantonio asked Mick Gordon to create a soundtrack with ambient, industrial, and electronic sounds. Tetsuya Nomura asked Yoko Shimomura to create a pop, electronic, orchestral, and atmospheric score. In an interesting twist, Eiji Ishida didn't ask or tell Shoji Meguro what kind of soundtrack to create. Ishida simply provided demon designs, a plot synopsis, character designs, and environmental concept art at the time. Meguro believes that soundtracks should echo the tone, atmosphere, and themes the story and world are trying to convey. After sitting on it for a few days, he followed his heart and made a soundtrack that you'd hear in a movie. This approach would result in one of Megaro's most unique soundtracks. The orchestral score is somehow terrifying, atmospheric, hopeful, dreadful, introspective, and everything in between. This soundtrack evokes fear each time you confront a boss, whenever you're exploring a sector, and endeavor the Schwarzfeld's harsh environment. Selecting an orchestral score to accompany a sci-fi militaristic setting shows why Shoji Meguro is one of gaming's best composers. Between Strange Journey and Redux, I've probably beaten this game 4 or 5 times now, and this soundtrack just always gets me. The feverish excitement of battles juxtaposed by the fear of death and letting mankind down as the Schwarzfeld engulfs the earth is remarkable. This game over screen really drives home Strange Journey's incredible atmosphere, but I'm starting to get ahead of myself. The only issue I have with the soundtrack, if you want to call it an issue, is that there's just not much of it. Strange Journey's soundtrack doesn't have a bad song, and they all serve their purpose, but it's pretty small when compared to other MegaTen games. And I'm not sure if this was due to hardware constraints either. I haven't played Devil Survivor yet, so this is just a theory. Anyways, that's really all that I have to say about the soundtrack. The only reservation that I have is that the soundtrack is just small. What's funny about this criticism is that I'm complaining there isn't more of it because what is here is phenomenal. Oh well, at least Shoji Meguro revisited the orchestral genre with Metaphor Rifantasio. With development out of the way, let's talk about graphics and presentation, but mostly the presentation because we are talking about a DS game here. Due to hardware limitations, many DS games leverage sprites and utilize minimal 3D effects, but that doesn't mean the game is ugly. There are tons of people that love the old school low polygon count character aesthetic because it's charming, and Strange Journey is no different. The character sprites, if they have them, look great, and the color palette is deliberately grayer to match the tone of the story. In Strange Journey, the world is on the brink of death. Crew members are constantly dying, dungeons are psychologically haunting, crew morale fluctuates between high and low, you lose communication with the Schwarzfeld's joint team, resources are scarce, and you're left with a haunting soundtrack as you cautiously navigate through the Schwarzfeld, scared of what lies in wait. All these elements slowly coalesce to create Shin Megami Tensei's patented, horrifying, oppressive, and often introspective atmosphere. Strange Journey's atmosphere might be one of the series' best. It's a small thing, but I love how Ishida and the team return to the first-person camera perspective here. First-person cameras allow players to get much more immersed in their environments. Closely looking at these environments and reflecting on what they mean is scary and becomes terrifying when you realize the cause of them. Additionally, the team did a great job combining the first-person camera with the sci-fi setting. It's a small thing, but I adore how much of the UI is tied to your demonica. This high-tech suit with the crew's weapons provides Strange Journey with this grounded feeling that's rooted in believability. Ishida and the team went even further by integrating this pragmatic approach into the game's story and mechanics. Strange Journey leverages quantum mechanics, the theory of relativity, antimatter, and more theories to create this sense of believability, which is a crazy compliment, especially when we're talking about science fiction. So you're probably asking yourself, Dogma, why did you just spend a page of the script talking about atmosphere, immersion, and believability? And I'm glad you asked. When I was playing SMT5 Vengeance earlier this year, it hit me that SMT5 doesn't really have much of an atmosphere. The atmosphere, especially with MegaTen's games, is important because it's part of the series' identity. The desolate wasteland of the Vortex world finds the demi-fiends struggling to survive. You're desperately looking for signs of life in this hauntingly quiet environment. Flynn and the samurai resided in the eastern kingdom of Mikado until reaching Tokyo. When they arrive, the team interacts with modern technology, people struggling to survive, unravel conspiracies, and piece together what happened through Tokyo's citizens. Strange Journey, while smaller in scope than these games, encompasses MegaTen's invitingly sinister atmosphere that I fell in love with. This series' atmosphere is part of its identity and one of the reasons I keep coming back to these games. Anyways, this game would be pretty boring if you just walked around depressed staring at walls, so let's talk about Strange Journey's otherworldly gameplay. As mentioned earlier, Strange Journey is a first-person, high-risk dungeon crawler with some exceptional combat. Exploration in this game harkens back to the original SMT games. If you aren't interested in exploring complex dungeons, getting into fights, and doing side quests with this camera's perspective, I cannot, at least in good faith, recommend this game. The biggest changes players will encounter are the Demon Analyze and Demon Co-op system. Humans can't see demons without their demonicas in Strange Journey's world. When you encounter a new demon, they initially appear as this pixelated creature until collecting data through combat. After a few fights, demons will begin to take form as their attacks and resistances are revealed. This is another great, albeit rudimentary, way to add some additional difficulty for veterans. If you've played a lot of MegaTen, you'll be well aware of demons' weaknesses before fighting them. Hiding the demon's identity, moves, and resistances forces players to assess a demon's potential weaknesses based on their attacks. This can be a double-edged sword, however. Sometimes you're really just going down the list, searching for weaknesses because you don't have much to work with. It's definitely easier to make an educated guess based on a demon's appearance. Like, I'm sure everyone knows to use gun skills on flying enemies or to hit Jack Frost with Agi. It's not really an issue in the grand scheme of things. If anything, I enjoy this feature as it makes sense within the world and provides this game with an identity. Then again, I could be wrong. There's a ton of MegaTen games out there that I haven't played, so I wouldn't be surprised if something similar was already done. And that's okay. At least they tried something new with the Demon Co-op system. Something I praised earlier was Ishida and the team's dedication to believability. I adore how there's a narrative purpose behind collecting data and how our demonicas evolve through combat and gaining resources. Additionally, seeing the moon phase, demon detectability, the team's health, enemy attacks, and other UI elements through the demonica makes Strange Journey's world that much more immersive. Furthermore, instead of leveraging Nocturne's industry-defining press-turn system, Ishida and the team strove to integrate alignments into the combat. This aspiration would result in Strange Journey's Demon Co-op system. When looking at the main character and demon's names, you may realize they all have different colors. Blue represents law, white represents neutral, and red represents chaos. Each time you, or a demon, strike an enemy's weakness, a demon co-op activates where you're awarded bonus damage based on how many members of the same alignment are on your team. For example, if I'm neutrally aligned and have one neutral party member, I'll receive a small damage buff. However, if I strike a weakness with a team full of neutral demons, I'll receive an enormous damage buff. The Demon Co-op system is pretty solid overall. It's a great change of pace from the press-turn system, forces us to use unconventional demons, and a great way to bridge the narrative with gameplay, but I'd be lying if I said it was perfect. While I love Strange Journey's combat and it works, the Demon Co-op system lacks press-turn's flexibility, and Strange Journey really leans towards chaos-aligned demons. When playing Nocturne, SMT4, and Vengeance, having moves reflected, absorbed, or even nullified can be a death sentence since you'll lose some or all of your turns. The fear and anxiety of choosing the wrong move is drastically diminished now that players no longer lose turns when making mistakes. This system also doesn't incentivize players to pass turns anymore. In the press turn system, you'd pass your turns to potentially buff, heal, or set up some strategy for your team. Passing turns is a tactical utility, allowing players to create unique strategies not found in other turn-based games. Under the Demon Co-op system, however, this nuance is gone since there's little to gain by doing so. It'd be cool if enemies could trigger Demon Co-op as well, since demons received additional turns when striking your weaknesses in the press turn system. Then again, this is probably one of those be careful what you wish for moments. The other minor issue I have with this system is with the Chaos Demons. This Chaos complaint is entirely implicit since I don't have any empirical information to back practice, but it really feels like the coolest demons are all Chaos aligned. This game is more than playable with law and neutral demons, don't get me wrong, but it just felt like Chaos had all the cool demons, and despite these shortcomings, the combat and overall balance of Strange Journey is very well handled. The combat system, blend of aligned demons throughout the dungeons, the gradual difficulty increase, and the well-designed bosses where buffs and debuffs aren't always the answer are incredibly well designed. And although the demon co-op system doesn't reach press turns highs, I'm glad that Ishida had a chance to revisit and enhance the system with Soul Hackers 2. The only other complaint I have is with demon negotiations, but I feel like I complain about these in every video, so we're gonna keep this short. These are, by far, the worst demon negotiations I've seen. Thanks to modern technology, interpret that as you will, I've tested all 3 dialogue options on some demons and they wouldn't join me regardless. I understand that demons don't want to talk with you because of different alignments, but like, why even provide a false sense of hope? While these aren't fun, you'll eventually recruit demons, and if you recruit a fully analyzed demon and level them up, you'll receive a demon source. Demon sources are an item used in demon fusion. Each source provides skills that newly fused demons can learn. Essentially, instead of new demons relying solely on the fused demon skills, players can teach new demon skills with demon sources, and I'm a big fan of this mechanic since it encourages you to experiment with different demons. If you don't level up and use different demons, you'll miss helpful abilities like Luster Candy. The biggest issue with fusion in this game outside of Demon Compendium costs is that there's no manual skill inheritance. If you're a newer fan of the MegaTen titles and haven't played the older games, allow me to demonstrate why this is a problem. Like smoking on planes, I miss the good old days too. Demon sources are also very rare. You'll likely receive one of these per demon throughout the game, so you'll have to choose wisely when to use them or hoard them with your items until beating the game like I do. Strange Journey modifies the MegaTen formula with how we level up our stats and the newly introduced app system as well. Instead of allocating our stats like in most RPGs, Strange Journey tries something different after boarding the red sprite and getting debriefed. Instead of allocating your stats like in most RPGs, Strange Journey tries something different. After boarding the red sprite and getting debriefed, the combat unit puts on their demonicas and are greeted with a personality test. In Strange Journey, your stats are automatically distributed based on your responses. I'm not going to lie, I was thrown off when this happened the first time and sort of just went through the motions until leveling up a few times. And this may be a rude awakening, especially if you're a seasoned MegaTen player with a specific build in mind. Honestly, I feel pretty apathetic here. Once you understand how the system works, it doesn't change much in the grand scheme of things. Nevertheless, players are locked into a combat role unless they restart the game. I guess it'd be nice to have a very rare item allowing us to redistribute our stats, but I'm mostly numb here since I've beaten the game so many times. Now the app system, no matter how many times I beat the game, always stays engaging. As players complete side quests, unlock forma, and progress the story, we'll receive access to a few apps that can change the game drastically. Some of these apps can change demon fusion results, how much damage we take from traps, regenerate magic every few steps, increase demon spawn rate, allow us to make a mistake when conversing with demons, earn additional Maka after each fight, and much more. However, at least in the original, we can't equip all of these at the same time. Each app is assigned a number based on their worth. With only 10 points to use, players will have to assess what they'd like to accomplish in the dungeon and build around it. Need more demons? Increase the spawn rate and allow for a mistake in negotiation. Have to explore a new dungeon? Reduce trap damage and decrease the spawn rate. Not only are these apps helpful, but there's also an interesting risk-reward loop for players to choose. While better apps have heavier costs, compromising with a lower tier app opens the possibility of enabling more apps. This opportunity cost and the risk-reward decision-making propels Strange Journey's engrossing dungeon crawling to new heights. The app system is an outstanding addition to this game, and I'm shocked that they haven't revisited it. I guess it makes sense though, since Atlus has been drifting away from dungeons, which is fine, but it'd be great to see them revisit it like the Demon co-op system. When you combine this incredible app system with some of MegaTen's best dungeons, Strange Journey really feels like MegaTen's swan song to their classic dungeon crawling formula. And with that said, now is probably the best time I'm going to have to talk about the dungeons because Strange Journey's dungeons are very special. Before discussing the dungeons, let's get one thing out of the way. Dungeons are like fighting games. They aren't for everyone, and even if you pitch the best one, it's not enough to persuade someone to try them. If you don't like dungeons or dungeon crawling, Strange Journey won't change your mind regardless of the incredible dungeon quality. Personally, I didn't grow up playing a ton of dungeon crawlers, so Strange Journey was a lot for me at first. I remember banging my head on the wall, constantly getting lost, and just wasn't having a good time until my second playthrough. Although I was overwhelmed with the dungeon difficulty at first, the second run really opened my eyes to how well constructed these dungeons actually are. If I had to describe Strange Journey's dungeons in one word, the word I would probably pick is superb. In my Nocturne video, I said great dungeons possess a few key elements like a unique aesthetic, atmosphere-enhancing music, logically placed save points, a special dungeon gimmick, rewards exploration, and has a deliberate purpose behind its design. Nocturne Shinjuku Medical Center does an excellent job at conveying Nocturne's design philosophy. Strange Journey, however, takes Nocturne's outstanding foundation to the next level. In addition to Nocturne's foundation, Strange Journey's dungeons gradually become larger and more complex. Each dungeon presents a brand new gimmick. Gimmicks are combined. Atlus integrated some Metroidvania DNA with the doors and gates you can't immediately open, and the game keeps players on the edge by becoming more difficult as the game progresses. These refinements to Nocturne's foundation elevate Strange Journey's dungeons to new heights, and I would argue serve as some of the best dungeons in gaming. To defend this claim, I'd like to explore how Atlus's use of gimmicks and the scalability of their dungeons allow them to preserve this rising sense of tension and make them stand out. In Sector A, the first dungeon, Atlus introduces Strange Journey's fundamental mechanics and clearly establishes a baseline of expectations for players. Players are expected to explore dungeons, fight enemies, collect forma, a commodity that appears in the Schwarzwelt used for crafting items, discover save points, use their apps, and so on to survive. Sector B preserves everything from Sector A while introducing invisible enemies, damaging floor tiles, occasional switches in Mitra's castle, trap doors, and more locked doors. Sector C adds pitch black rooms and introduces the first iteration of phase shifts. Sector D adds one-way tiles, vision to pitch black rooms, teleportation pads, and the ability to unlock more doors. And Sector E, well, Sector E is like the poster child of this game. Sector E is quite infamous for being much larger than the previous dungeons, adding one-way doors, sleeping and poison tiles, and houses Ouroboros, one of Strange Journey's most challenging bosses. Sector E also introduces Jack Squad, which sends you on a scavenger hunt for rare forma. This hunt will send you all over Sector E looking for these forma, and it can be a bit much. The reason I love Sector E is because it feels like the final exam. Outside of invisible paths and adding an additional phase shift, this is the extent of what the game throws at you. Yes, Sector E is daunting, and the teleportation tiles can be a bit much, but throwing everything at you fits the narrative, preserves the difficulty, and forces players to think as they compose the team, the best apps to use for survival, and more as you endure what the team believes to be the final dungeon. The challenge is what makes it so memorable in my opinion. Anyways, the funny part about Sector E is that I think Sector G is substantially worse, but Sector E trauma is definitely generational. And despite Atlus's sublime dungeon design execution, none of these sectors will change your mind if you don't enjoy dungeon crawling. Shin Megami Tensei, at least the older games, were popular for their thought-provoking narratives, challenging combat, and high-risk reward dungeon crawling. SMT was initially rooted in challenging dungeon crawling, and Strange Journey, like I said earlier, feels like a swan song to this classic design. Strange Journey feels like a celebration of everything Atlus has learned up to this point, and the quality of these dungeons speak for themselves, yet SMT hasn't really been a dungeon crawler since arguably 2009. With SMT 4, Kazuki Yamai and the team shifted their focus more to world building and exploring Tokyo. Regardless if this was done due to hardware limitations or the new design philosophy, SMT 4's dungeons are much more rudimentary when compared to its predecessors, and SMT 5 shared a similar fate. SMT 5's design shifted from dungeon exploration to creating an incredible gameplay loop, harmonizing the new open level design with refined press-turned combat. If you'd like to hear my full thoughts on 4 and 5, I'll have links to both videos in the description. For those who've seen the video, you'll know that I praised both designs. Evolution is a part of innovation, and it needs to occur. Artists and other creatives aren't machines and want to explore different design philosophies and different approaches, and if you don't let creatives be, well, creative, they'll turn into Ubisoft and be scared to innovate while everything around them is on fire. If you enjoy Soul Hackers, Nocturne, or the original SMT games, Strange Journey will be a seamless transition for you. However, if Persona 4, 5, SMT 5, or SMT 4 were your entry points into the series, Strange Journey will definitely feel like a culture shock. SMT 5 especially will be rough given the open-ended nature of that game's system, but at least Strange Journey has better side quests than that game. An area I was exceptionally critical of SMT 5 on was with its lackluster side quest. I criticized the side quest for destroying 5's atmosphere and not contributing much, if not anything, to the world building. This wouldn't have been a huge problem if SMT 4's side quests didn't blow them out of the water. 4 side quests were remarkable because they added additional context to the world and demonstrate how civilians struggle to exist. Strange Journey side quests are somewhere in between 4 and 5 for me. They don't destroy or contrast the events of the narrative like SMT5's, but they don't enhance the world as much as SMT4's. Strange Journey side quests are serviceable and they get the job done, but Kazuyuki Yamai, Shinji Yamamoto, and the rest of SMT4's development team really spoiled us with 4's quest quality and its incredible writing. And since we're talking about writing, Strange Journey is the pinnacle of Atlus's narrative efforts in my opinion. Calling Strange Journey's narrative incredible is kind of an insult, so let's dive into what makes the story and themes so captivating, and why it stands out from other MegaTen stories including Persona. Before getting into the narrative, I'd like to remind everyone that if you're enjoying the video, a subscription and a like would go a far way in helping the channel grow. Thanks for your support and back to the video. The biggest change players will immediately recognize coming from Nocturne is the shifts from minimalist to a more dialogue and exposition heavy narrative. While the story is content letting scenes play without dialogue, Strange Journey spends a lot of time explaining scientific phenomena, developing characters, and providing players with ample downtime to reflect on major events, and similar to most of Atlus's games, the only area the story suffers is with the opening hours. Now, I plan to dedicate a separate video for this topic entirely, but Atlus consistently struggles to leave a good first impression with most of their games. Persona 4, as much as I love you, really struggles with its opening hours, and SMT4 is no different. Strange Journey's opening is kind of a slow burn as well. The game opens with a ton of exposition pertaining to world building and the gravity of the Schwarzfeld's existence. Seeing the state of the world, the politics around it, the joint project debriefing, and meeting your crew, it'll be a while until players set foot in their first dungeon. Opening an interactive form of media with 20 to 40 minutes, depending on your reading speed, of dialogue can be a tough pill to swallow for players, and that's coming from a big Metal Gear Solid fan. I will say that you do experience the core gameplay loop faster than Persona 4 and SMT4, but Strange Journey's opening can be a bit overwhelming. However, I will say that all of this context is important for onboarding players into Strange Journey's world and does an excellent job establishing the drama and introducing the cast. Then again, this is probably more of a me problem since Atlus's games have been exploding in popularity for the past decade. In the grand scheme of things, it's not really a huge problem because this, especially with Strange Journey, is really its only problem. The rest of the game has outstanding pacing, great writing, a collection of solid endings, and one of my favorite MegaTen casts. While the alignment representatives in the entire cast are great, I'd like to highlight why I believe a few characters are so compelling, starting with Gore. Gore is one of the first members you meet after boarding the Red Sprite. He briefly serves as the captain of the Red Sprite and leader of the operation. He's an incredibly strong-willed man that's dedicated to leading his team, building relationships with everyone around him, eradicating the Schwarzfeld, and ultimately protecting humanity. After crash landing into Sector A and rescuing everyone, he dies trying to save Jimenez. The team, clearly distraught by the loss of their commander, stores his body in the sickbay so they can give him a proper burial when they escape. Unfortunately, all of this changes when reaching Sector D. Shortly after arriving, Gore's body disappears, and when you find him, something other than the tuxedo is clearly off. Gore, no longer in control of his body, says that he's been revived by the Mother and that mankind is doomed to destruction. From here, he essentially disappears until reaching Sector G, where he tells you it's impossible for the team to succeed until finally coming to his senses. Gore thanks you, explains everything he knows to the team, and outlines a plan to destroy the Schwarzfeld if you choose the neutral path. His will, righteousness, and steadfast resolve to mankind's survival highlights mankind's tenacity to survive under any circumstance. Instead of giving up, he endures and fights for his freedom, in turn fighting for mankind. While Strange Journey explores the many shortcomings and hypocrisies of men, Gore proudly stands in opposition of this. He represents the hope in mankind, why we should be optimistic, and embodies the idiom, the darkest night comes before the brightest dawn. Nevertheless, it wouldn't be an SMT game without chaos and law representatives, and since Gore died for Jimenez, let's talk about him next. Jimenez is a pretty unique interpretation of the Chaos alignment. While most Chaos representatives focus on creating freedom through pandemonium, Jimenez arrives at this conclusion in a rather distinct way, which is hinted at during the opening hours. After initially boarding the Red Sprite, you can shake Goran's Lenin's hand after introducing yourself. This is meant to show respect and build a sense of camaraderie before the mission begins. Jimenez, however, is the only person who refuses this kind gesture. He says he doesn't want to get friendly with anyone and claims that you never know who needs to be left behind. He clearly states that he joins the operation for money and doesn't really care about the Schwarzfeld and definitely not the crew. One of the unique aspects I adore about Strange Journey is the age of its cast. Gore, Jimenez, Zelenin, and everyone is presumably in their late 20s or early to mid 30s. Older characters rely on life experiences to inform decisions and govern who they are, and since Strange Journey doesn't dive into anyone's past, players can speculate what they've been through. Jimenez clearly doesn't respect authority and sees himself as an individual rather than part of the collective. And after seeing Bugaboo ostracized, he begins to relate to the demon and develops a bond with him. Bugaboo being absorbed by Horcus is the closest to remorse we see from Jimenez, and he's clearly far more grateful for Bugaboo protecting him in Sector D than the crew and Massima for curing him. As the story progresses, he wields more demons, he starts to admire their freedom and how they aren't shackled by humanity's sense of morals. Jimenez begins to see them as individuals, values the humanity found in them, and ultimately exchanges his life to save Bugaboo. Instead of simply valuing chaotic freedom like most chaos representatives, Jimenez sees the parallel between demons and humans and relates to them. He provides another layer to demons by humanizing them through their relatability. Countless decisions, wars, and conflicts have started because mankind wanted to protect the land or resources. Not only is this parallel genius when discussing the similarities between demons to humans, but it's also deeply concerning how much we have in common with demons. Humanizing demons and stressing the destructive nature of free will makes Jimenez an exquisite chaos representative to me. The only area his character falters is with the ending, but I'm more than willing to look past that because of how well his character is written and executed. And luckily, all this praise can be extended to Zelenin as well. Zelenin isn't a soldier like you, Gore, Jimenez, and the members of the strike team. She's a scientist staffed to research and support the team. After briefly meeting her in the opening hours, you eventually find her in Mitra's castle. Traumatized by Mitra's experiments and the demons holding her captive, she outright refuses to trust them and use the demon summoning program. The only demon she trusts is the angel Massima. Massima helps you and Zelenin escape Mitra's dungeon and helps the team throughout the story. Because of this, Zelenin begins to rely on Massima for guidance, constantly pursuing him whenever encountering adversity. This admiration, however, eventually evolves into reliance on his ultimate authority. Outside of Massima and the angels, Zelenin refuses to work with demons and has much more faith in mankind while keenly aware of our shortcomings. She believes society and mankind can survive if we follow God's order, but the word follow is a bit of a stretch. As demonstrated with Jack's crew, follow really means forfeiting your freedom and sense of self. After Massima transforms Zelenin into an angel and she sinks to Jack's crew, their personalities change drastically. While mankind is undoubtedly flawed, she believes they can be saved, unlike the barbaric demons. Zelenin, in my interpretation, feels like a cautionary tale about not confronting your trauma, being overly optimistic in the unknown, and fear of agency. I understand she saw her team get tortured, but the reality is that Massima, a demon, helped them several times, and the team would have died without the demons. Generalizing all demons is awful, and relying on Massima and ignoring the clear parallels between demons and mankind is dangerously stupid, but we'll cover this more later when discussing the bosses. Then again, I suppose that's why she wants to remove our free will. Speaking of the pitfalls of mankind, let's talk about Jack's crew. Jack's crew travels to the Schwarzfeld to collect resources, conduct experiments on demons, and become wealthy. Captain Jack and his crew represent mankind's individualist nature and destructive outcomes when influenced. While Zelenin was thrilled to find more humans in the Schwarzfeld, Jimenez immediately realized something was off and proceeded with caution. Things were going smoothly with them until Arthur detected some unusual activity at their base. After confronting them and not really finding anything, the team agreed someone should stay behind to spy on them. Jimenez, in a very rare demonstration of self-righteousness, volunteered himself and was eventually captured before fusing with Bugaboo to save its life. Jack's crew has no regard for your team and is solely here to further themselves. The grotesque experiments they conduct on demons are very similar to Mitra's experiments on humans and show how ruthless human nature can really be. Throughout our history, millions of people have been exploited for economic gain and have been pillaged for resources. Jack's crew represents this selfishness and demonstrates why Jimenez, believing demons and humans to be one and the same, really isn't that far-fetched. In addition to supporting Jimenez's beliefs about mankind, Jack's crew is an excellent antithesis for Zelenin's belief, as their experiments closely mirror Mitra's. And unfortunately, all the bosses have been alluding to mankind's various hypocrisies as well. Morax refers to humans as bloodthirsty killers, since we've been hell-bent on destroying ourselves since our inception. Instead of preserving and fostering growth, we've consistently waged wars on each other. Mitra seeks to biologically understand humans through vicious experiments. If you think these experiments are inhuman, I implore you to research how the smallpox and polio vaccines were created. While these experiments were undeniably brutal, destruction and creation are two sides of the same coin. What I'm trying to get at here is, while brutal, Mitra's inquisitive nature is really human, and Horcus represents the danger of mankind's consumerist behavior, infinite desires, and gluttonous infatuation of things. Between the late 19th and the 20th century, Europeans had essentially drained Africa of its resources and used them for trade to develop their nations. After these resources were harvested, Europeans destroyed their infrastructure, all but ensuring future economic stagnation for these countries. This need to hoard resources at the expense of others, excessively consume everything, and produce tons of waste makes Horkos's words dangerously relatable. Initially, I was planning to give all the bosses their own spotlight in this video. They're all very thought-provoking, incredibly well written, and meant to highlight our inability to learn from our dark pasts. But I'm approaching page 14 and I still have another third of the outline to get through. So let's talk about Strange Journey's endings, themes, and Redux before closing out this video. The law ending finds you and Zelenin defeating Memolef and using the cosmic eggs to destroy the Schwarzfeld and the demons. Zelenin plunges the Earth into a world of order through her angelic hymn shortly after. Instead of making decisions for the future, Zelenin forfeits mankind's agency to rely entirely on God's will, and this ending makes sense with Zelenin's characterization. Zelenin always relied on Massimo for paving a path forward. She rarely made any decisions herself and was often directionless without him. And although Zelenin's approach brought peace, the cost was monumental. Similar to Jack's crew, everyone loses their freedom for this peace. Yes, freedom can be destructive, but expression is critical for innovation, the arts, and everything in life. Without this, especially in Zelenin's world, we're essentially slaves to God's order. Choices and decisions are what makes us human, and relinquishing these for Zelenin's self-righteous sense of order is polarizing to say the least. To make matters worse, Zelenin's world seeks to forcefully indoctrinate everyone into this belief. Voting on a leader through a democratic process is much easier to stomach than forcing your philosophical dogma on the masses. On the flip side, Jimenez's approach is also riddled with problems. The chaos ending finds you siding with Jimenez and Memolef as you strike down Massimo and Zelenin. After they're defeated, mankind is eradicated as the Schwarzfeld engulfs the planet. The new world is populated by demons who are free to do as they please. Hope and freedom are the new rules of the world, as those with power control everything. While this sounds great on the surface, this hope and freedom world was created through the genocide of mankind. Jimenez, realizing he was too weak on his own and wanted to save Bugaboo, trades his humanity for power to protect himself. So long as you have power, you can happily exist in this world. The shortcomings of Jimenez's world are pretty straightforward, but let's briefly cover them. As mentioned earlier, Jimenez couldn't have achieved this demon-filled world with his power alone. Memolef was fundamental to executing this plan, and he needed Bugaboo's power to put things into motion. Additionally, this world has a clear bias towards those with power, obviously. If you're physically weak, have a disability, or simply lacking in power, you don't deserve to exist in this new world. And lastly, as Strange Journey's narrative has been stressing, uncontrolled raw human nature can birth extremist behaviors like causing the Schwarzfeld to swallow Earth. In the 19th century, utilitarian philosopher Jeremy Bentham pioneered this idea of the social contract in his An Introduction to the Principles and Morals of Legislation and the Panopticon writings. Basically, he wrote about how mankind and the broader society should forfeit their freedoms to maximize overall happiness, equitability, and society's well-being. And while this concept makes logical sense, human nature, unfortunately, isn't always logical. As Morax discussed in Sector A, mankind has a dark history of going to war for property, resources, religion, and other economic reasons. Even though it's typically in everyone's best interest to peacefully negotiate, countless wars have broken out regardless. What I'm trying to get at here is that we're brutal animals. Jimenez's lawless world will almost certainly lead to geopolitical power vacuums, the birth of numerous factions, leadership through fear, more meaningless death, and doom the planet to endless wars. Is the world an equitable place with great leadership? Absolutely not. The current world has an increasing wealth bracket, classism is running rampant, there are countless war-torn areas, and numerous third world countries had their resources drained. But despite these issues, the current world where we trade our freedom for everyone's well-being is still better than Jimenez's alternative. On the topic of how awful things are, let's address the neutral ending, and like Nocturne's freedom ending, how it addresses absolutely nothing. The neutral ending finds the main character killing Zelenin, Jimenez, and Memolef as everyone escapes the Schwarzfeld, momentarily sealing it away. This neutral ending may look fine on the surface, but it falls apart the more you think about it. As you've learned during your time in the Schwarzfeld, this isn't the first time the Schwarzfeld appeared. The Schwarzfeld has appeared countless times throughout history, and we're directly responsible for it. There's a lot of Japanese media aimed at criticizing human nature for the destruction of mankind and the planet, and Strange Journey is no different. The Schwarzwelt, in my interpretation at least, feels like Mother Nature defending itself from us. Countless wars, economic disparity, humanity's dark past, and how cavalierly we destroy our planet meaningfully articulates why the Schwarzwelt appeared in the first place. Humans are the progenitors of the Schwarzwelt. We've caused its genesis and we're responsible for the outcome. You know, the more I write about this, I can't help shake the feeling that the planet's rising temperatures, the coral reef disappearing, and other climate issues as a metaphor for the Schwarzwelt. The other elephant in the room with the neutral ending is that nothing's resolved. While I vehemently disagree with Zelenin and Jimenez's approach, at least they made a decision. The neutral ending finds everyone saying, "Oh my god, thank god we made it out, let's try better next time." Similar to my thoughts on Nocturne's freedom ending, nothing is resolved. Deciding not to decide or leaving things to the next generation is why the Schwarzwelt appeared in the first place. History has repeated numerous times, and humans are distinctly not altruistic. Unless sweeping changes are effectively made, the Schwarzwelt may as well have left a note saying, "See you soon." Furthermore, expecting mankind, the animals doomed to repeat history, to change is nothing more than blind optimism. If you've played other MegaTen games, these endings aren't anything groundbreaking, and plenty of other games have caused similar discussion, yet Strange Journey's endings are quite memorable for the outstanding writing and grim implications about humanity. Something that really surprised me when viewing the Law and Chaos endings was how mankind was always removed from them. Zelenin's Utopia finds mankind losing all sense of agency and relying on God, while Jimenez's world eradicates us entirely because we're weak. Both of these solutions remove mankind from the equation, and I refuse to believe it's a simple coincidence. If the Schwarzwelt has appeared countless times and is a byproduct of our morals, ethics, and actions, why are we entitled to exist? Expecting mankind to learn from the past, honestly, is sort of idiotic, and I think that's the message Ishida, Isogai, and the team wanted to convey here. For the reasons I just discussed, Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey is a very thematically dense game, meticulously analyzing the questionable nature of mankind. Strange Journey seeks to critically assess mankind's rationale, our responsibility for the past and the future, and a psychologically horrifying story about becoming the monsters we've sworn to destroy. If you've seen my previous videos, you'll know critiques on mankind are some of my favorite pieces of media. Psycho-Pass, Blade Runner, Princess Mononoke, and especially Watchmen are some of my favorites for their thematically dense discussions on our numerous shortcomings. Ultimately, we are responsible for the Schwarzwelt. Demons have studied and mimicked our destructive behavior. Being human and hypocrisy may as well be synonyms. Morax, Mitra, Horkos, Ashura, Jack's crew, and the rest of the bosses illustrate various aspects of what it means to be human. For all these reasons, and my own personal bias of course, Strange Journey is my favorite MegaTen story I've experienced so far. This story tackles so many interesting themes that I'm sure it's resonated with all of us differently, so I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts on this game's story and themes as well in the comments, because obviously this video is just my interpretation. While the story didn't introduce any new ideas to me, it may be the most succinct yet nuanced exploration of these themes that I've seen. The story is paced incredibly well, the game never preaches to you outside of the opening hours, all the themes are handled with grace, and everything is masterfully written. If Strange Journey was a book, TV show, or even a movie, it probably would have won a Pulitzer Prize or at least a Hugo Award. And fortunately, or unfortunately depending on who you are, Atlus would follow tradition by releasing an enhanced re-release of Strange Journey called Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey Redux. Originally, I was planning to cover this in a separate video, but democracy works on this channel, and it's probably better to have all my thoughts on Strange Journey in one neat place. In a Retronauts interview with Strange Journey director Eiji Ishida, Ishida confirmed the remake was created to boost the game's popularity and confirmed Atlus would have considered a sequel had the remake sold well, and since we don't have a Strange Journey 2, I guess we all know how well the remake sold. The original Strange Journey released in Japan in 2009 and Strange Journey Redux released in 2017, so I'll just come out and say it. 8-year-old games do not need remakes. I understand Atlus wanting to commemorate SMT's 25th anniversary by releasing a new game, but celebrating with a remake of an 8-year-old game in an attempt to boost sales was done in bad faith. Regardless of your feelings on Redux, I think we can all agree remaking an 8-year-old game on a already backwards compatible console is incredibly stupid. Right, Sony? Anyways, we have Redux, so let's talk about my divisive relationship with it. To preface this next section, if you aren't aware, Redux by far is one of, if not the most controversial of Atlus's re-releases. Instead of picking a side and moving on, I'd like to discuss the good, the bad, and which version of the game I ultimately lean towards playing. And lastly, I've completed Strange Journey Redux in the past, but I didn't beat it for this video since democracy works in this corner of the internet. Because of this, I have a limited amount of footage, so I apologize ahead of time if any of the footage is repeated. Lastly, let's all be adults in the comments and not attack anyone's character for an opinion. With that preamble out of the way, let's talk about what I enjoyed starting with the new art direction. With the exception of Dent, Jimenez, and a handful of others, the entire cast received portraits and they mostly look great. Seeing a face provides the cast with more presence and makes them easier to remember than just a name. Yes, the models look different than Kaneka's original designs, and yes, the color palette is much more saturated when compared to the original, but I don't think a shift in art direction is enough to call something bad. Additionally, the updated graphics and new art direction provide additional detail and more clarity to the dungeons as well. These additions contribute to Strange Journey's already dense atmosphere, but we'll revisit this after discussing the gameplay changes. Redux adds enemy health bars, rebalances a few bosses, and adds group experience. I'm aware there's a part of the community that doesn't like these changes, but many of these were meant to bring Strange Journey more in line with Atlus's games at the time. If no one complained about Persona 5 and SMT5 adding health bars, why are we surprised and why are we complaining about these inclusions in a game from 2017, especially when there are bigger issues? With that said, group experience will level you up quickly and players will have many more demon sources for fusion when compared to the original. Redux bolsters other quality of life changes like manual demon skill inheritance and shows what demon skills will potentially transform into. Honestly, I don't think you can make an argument against either of these. Manual skill inheritance prevents you from doing this, so it's a straight upgrade, and I'd love to know how many of us allow demons to transform moves in the original. Other quality of life changes I love are how players can fast forward through battle animations, run in dungeons, quick saves are convenient, and demons being able to summon other demons to name a few. Redux's standout feature, in my opinion though, has to be the incredible voice acting. With the exception of NPCs and dungeons, the entire game now has voice acting, and I can't praise the voice actors and actresses enough for their performance. While I'm admittedly biased since Boku wa Nihongo o Naseru, playing Strange Journey and Redux's openings back-to-back on stream elicited different emotions out of me. Hearing the world leaders' desperation in their voices, seeing and hearing Jimenez's fear when attacked, watching Gore's death, and listening to everyone's vocal performances made the game that much more immersive and brought the story to new heights for me. The additional cutscenes, uncompressed soundtrack, character portraits, quality of life changes, new music, the outstanding voice acting, and the more detailed environments provide a level of immersion the original just doesn't have. Nevertheless, I'd be lying if I said Redux was perfect, so let's start by addressing a few of my personal reservations, starting with the art direction. Earlier I said the portraits weren't all created equally and was critical of Jimenez and Dent. In addition to these characters looking like this, members of the sickbay have a more contemporary anime look to them. This aesthetic clashes with Strange Journey's grayer and less saturated art direction. Atlus made an attempt to offset this by brightening up the world, but now the world clashes with the oppressive nature of the game. Now, we have a story about mankind's shortcomings with modern anime characters delivering this dark tale in a bright setting. And while this certainly is an issue, I'd rather have these portraits and voice acting than not. In the positive section earlier, I spent a lot of time praising the quality of life changes, but I believe Redux's combat additions are unfortunately more detrimental than good. The biggest issue with Redux's combat are easily the newly introduced commander skills and the revamped app system. If you've seen my SMT4 video, I pretty much feel the same way about commander skills as I do with Smirk. Simply put, adding more RNG to a turn-based game and removing player control is a bad idea. Similar to apps in the original Strange Journey, players can purchase commander skills and use them in combat. However, Redux also has commander skills that randomly activate, and these aren't subtle. The randomly activated commander skills cost no resources, are entirely random, we can't strategize around them, and some of them entirely shift the battle in your favor. Games have become much easier over the past 30 years, and that's fine, but Strange Journey's difficulty beautifully coexists with the themes presented and feels like part of the game's identity. Mankind and the player by extension are meant to fight for their lives and endeavor whatever the short spell throws at them while reflecting on their actions. The simple addition of random commander skills is at odds with Strange Journey's tone and atmosphere. To make matters worse, you can't turn these off either, and unfortunately, the app system rework only exacerbates this gameplay and atmosphere dissonance. When I was discussing Strange Journey's gameplay, I praised the app system for presenting players with a set of options that changes how they engage with the game systems. However, Redux's app system replaced the app capacity limit with a simple binary on or off decision. Instead of installing apps that help you with fusion, exploring the dungeon, reducing tile damage, increasing experience, or anything else, players now just set all their apps to on and they never look at this system ever again. Unlike commander skills that can be fixed, the new app system is a full step back from the original's implementation. For these two reasons, I believe Redux has much less engaging gameplay when compared to the original, and then there's Alex and the new content. Honestly, Alex and the Womb of Grief don't really bother me a whole lot. I don't have a ton to say about Alex and the new endings because you can just ignore her and still get the original endings if you want. Yes, the Womb of Grief will overlevel you, but Atlus has a history of new content overleveling players and making their games much easier, and yes, I'm looking at you, Persona 5 Royal. So with all that said, I guess it's time to answer the question of which version do I suggest and where do I stand in this grand debate between the two games? Well, it really depends on your preferences. Redux offers a richer environment, more graphical detail, quality of life changes, incredible voice acting, and a much deeper sense of immersion. On the flip side, however, the gameplay is much less engaging, the quality of life features are a mixed bag, and the additional content is inoffensive at best. Personally, I lean towards Redux for the more detailed environments, character portraits, voice acting, and that new layer of immersion. However, if you prefer gameplay and none of these ancillary refinements mean anything to you, the original is an outstanding way to experience this masterpiece. Another reason I lean towards Redux though is because I believe it has a much higher likelihood of being ported than the original. When I first started working on this video, I was going to recommend Redux simply because it's more accessible than the DS version. But with Nintendo closing the 3DS's eShop and game preservation being a joke, honestly just play whatever version you like. Furthermore, after seeing Atlus prioritize Persona 3 Portable over Fez and already remaking Strange Journey, the likelihood of them porting the original game is slim to none. Regardless of Redux's divisive nature, I think we can all agree on something. Strange Journey, whichever version you choose to play, is an outstanding game and a monumental achievement for Atlus and everyone involved. And this effectively brings us to one of the main reasons I'm making this video. Atlus, I'm literally on my knees begging. Please port this game to PC and modern consoles and please don't let it be lost to time. Like, come on, man. I understand that ports and remasters cost time and money, but please use the Etrian Odyssey Origins collection as the proof of concept here. It would be wonderful if we had an accessible version of this game similar to Etrian Odyssey. Then again, Ishida said Atlus would consider a sequel if Redux sold well, and unfortunately we never got a sequel. This probably means that Redux didn't perform as well as Sega wanted, but that doesn't mean Strange Journey doesn't deserve another chance. Ever since Persona 5's release, Atlus's games have exploded in popularity, went multiplat, and there's been much more interest in Shin Megami Tensei games. Sure, Soul Hackers 2 may have underperformed, but outside of it not releasing on the Switch, let's not ignore the success that you found with Nocturne and Vengeance. These sales figures and market data demonstrates the untapped potential and the rising interest players have in the IP. And if you're unsure about how Redux will perform, please consider porting SMT4 to test the waters. Anyways, I just hit page 20 on the script and I have no idea who's here, so let's wrap this up. If you're still here, you probably feel the same way about Strange Journey as I do. I genuinely don't know if Atlus can create a better game than this. Strange Journey is one of those rare games that hits on all cylinders and demonstrates everything that Atlus has learned since Shin Megami Tensei's inception. I'd love to praise this game even more, but this video from a passionate fan is the best that I can do. Strange Journey is one of those once-in-a-decade types of games. It's mind-boggling to think that it even exists. The haunting soundtrack, Kaneko's artistic vision, the robust writing, thought-provoking narrative, masterful gameplay, meaningful difficulty, genre-defining dungeons, and incredible atmosphere coalesce to create the best JRPG I've had the pleasure of playing. And yet, this game won't be for everyone. Strange Journey is best defined as a niche's niche. While this may sound hyperbolic, the lack of sequel speaks for itself. In order to love Strange Journey, you have to love dungeon crawling, you have to love challenging games, you have to be flexible, and you must have an inquisitive mind that's capable of being challenged with the narrative's psychologically horrifying subject matter. Nevertheless, Nevertheless, preserving art is important. Sega, don't let this game be forgotten in time, and please consider porting it to PC and consoles. We've already lost a ton of classics to time, and Strange Journey, Atlus's magnum opus, shouldn't share this wretched fate. Alright, this video was a long time coming. I've been wanting to talk about Strange Journey since I started the channel, but I just haven't played it since starting this channel. Between playing through all these games, streaming, writing, editing, and all that stuff, I've just been kept very busy, so I know that I wanted to do Strange Journey justice, so hopefully this video really articulates why I consider it a masterclass MegaTen game, and probably one of the best games that I'm ever going to play. A Strange Journey is definitely one of those once-in-a-generation type of games, and it's just, oh my god, it's so great. And it might not get you initially, but the more you think about the themes and when you think about the genius of its overall design, it's kind of hard to not just be rooting for it. So yeah, hopefully Sega gets a chance to port this game. I understand it's probably not the most popular, and it's probably not going to sell as well as Nocturne or SMT4, or definitely SMT5 did, but it should definitely be one of those games that's preserved for history because it's just such a crazy accomplishment. Anyways, thanks for making it to the end of the video. Feel free to follow me on Twitch, where I'm currently playing through Metaphor. I'm planning on covering the game one day on the channel. Not sure when, because you know it's a JRPG and these games take like 100 hours to get through. But yeah, this might be the last project for the year. I might be working through another discussion video, but we'll see how fast I can get through an outline script and really just get my thoughts together. But yeah, I plan to cover more MegaTen, but these videos take a while to put together, right? Like, it's not like I'm playing through a stealth game where it's like 10-15 hours and then I turn the stealth game into an outline, turn that into a script, and then you get through it. It's like you have to plan like a few weeks to play through a game, and you don't want to get burnt out. So, but it's all good. Like, I'll cover more MegaTen in the future. A huge shout out to my channel members and Twitch subscribers for supporting my creative endeavors. I really appreciate it, guys. I'm just floored by the fact that anybody even wants to support what I'm doing, but I really appreciate it. And if you'd like to become a channel member, I have some perks that I can offer, like early video access, a special Discord role, access to my scripts and outlines, a member exclusive chat room, emotes, and more. So a few questions for everybody. Is Strange Journey your favorite MegaTen game? Do you think this game has the best alignment representatives? If you didn't enjoy this game and you watched this video, hopefully it changed your mind, but you know, just curious why. Like I said earlier, I know that the dungeons are the dungeons and that everybody's not going to like them, but if you do like dungeon crawling, this is, I don't know, it's just a great time in my opinion. Do you think Atlus should port Strange Journey? Which version of Strange Journey would you like to see ported? How would you get into MegaTen? If Strange Journey isn't your favorite, which is your favorite, and which SMT should I play next? As always, everybody, thanks for watching. Be sure to join the Discord if you want to chat with me and everybody else. Follow me on Twitter or Blue Sky, and I will check in with y'all later.